new membership application is coming out in this newsletter or the minutes. So it's that time of year to sign up again. So, and then there was one of them. No, I think that was it, just the application.
Thank you. Our treasurer.
So our current balance is $4,209.99, and our PayPal balance is $23.64. All I have.
Okay, and also as the applications or the membership, that you said it's up and
It's going to be.
it's going to be up. So there's somebody that recently signed up with a membership. So if you're wanting to sign up for next year, just give us a little bit of time and we'll have that up and running. Okay.
Well, it's up right now. She'll send out the link and it is attached to the website right now. So if you go on the website, you
And also I'm gonna be, if you don't, we totally encourage you to do it online. But if you don't, next time we have a meeting, which is January, right? We're not gonna have a December one.
So we were gonna.
Oh, we're deciding that? Okay, the next meeting, I'll bring application forms. So in case you're not tech savvy, and when you fill it out, and correct me if I'm wrong, at the end, there's a link to PayPal.
Yep. So you want to, when you're doing it online, you want to fill out the whole application, make sure you hit submit. That way that part goes over and then click the link to PayPal, which will take you over there. And you basically, there's a drop down. You can pick, I want to pay 25 for the individual, 44. Then click on that. That'll take you to PayPal and let you do that. But if you don't click submit and you pay, all of a sudden we go, wait a minute, we've got a payment, but we don't know who, I have to match it. If it's an existing member, it's not too bad. I can match up your email, but if you're a new one, it's like, thank you for signing up, but I don't know who you are. Please fill out this form.
Thanks for the donation. Yeah. For the Hawaii fund. And then our media officer.
So, yeah, so what I was gonna say that, yeah, I got the application ready to go and it's up and running, so, our membership goes from January to December, and just remember, if you want to be part of CSBA next year, we need to have everybody, we'll remind everybody too, we need to have your paid in full membership by the middle of March. Because then we have 2 weeks. They want all of our information by April. So that gives us a couple of weeks in order to get everything over to them. So I've been kind of busy, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to do much else other than website wise. We'll bring it up here real quick. The swarms have finally slowed down and I'm not getting all the phone calls anymore of I have bees and it's not bees. So I did take some time to kind of plot out where the swarms came from. So that's kind of the overview. You can see, of course, most of it is here in the valley. But we get this posted up here on. It's posted up so people can see it here.
CSBS, Colorado State Beekeepers Association. If you are a member of
There we go.
Western Colorado, then you automatically have a membership to Colorado State Beekeeping Association as well.
Yep.
And so you have access to their club with their meetings, and there's a couple other things.
They have a
offer.
couple of statewide meetings. Usually one is in Rifle and then the other one somewhere around the Front Range in the winter. They also, in the past, we've had a couple of guest speakers from, beekeeping clubs, so we can kind of see what they're doing over there. They have they're working on a master beekeeping class. And then there are some discounts to different stores, but everything's on the Front Range because basically there's two big beekeeping clubs in Western Colorado, us and Durango, and everybody else is over there. So they try to accommodate, with us being over here, they're trying to do a little bit of accommodation, but when you're looking at, two relatively small clubs compared to all the people over there, we're kind of, redheaded stepchild, I guess, if you want to put it that way. So, but yeah, now that I got this up, there's kind of the overview. You can kind of see they're all over the place. Obviously, most are here in the valley, but you know, we did get
There's
this.
still.
Yep. So
That's
and
valid.
then that's kind of zoomed in the valley there. Yep, where they're all over. So not quite as, you know, there's more spread out this year. Last year there was a lot downtown. This year they're a little bit more spread out. So you never know.
So that way you can see where your swarm went. You didn't get your swarm.
Yeah.
Somebody else in the club got it. So
Yeah.
again, if you are a member, then you're automatically, I guess you have to request to be on.
Yeah,
the swarm.
yeah, and I'll get those forms for the swarm list and stuff. We'll probably get those out March-ish, because we aren't gonna see many swarms right now. We'll get that out. And we'll explain more in the spring how that actually works. So. But I mean, that's one of the perks of being in the beekeeping club. You pay $25 to be a member, so it's a member only thing, because I have tons of people when I put out on Facebook, here's our number, tons of people go, I want to collect swarms. I'm like, be a member. $25, you get a chance to catch a swarm, you made your money for 10 years. So, you know, I joke, if I call you and you get a swarm, it means you should be a member for at least the next 5 to 10 years to get your, you know, you definitely got your money's worth out of it.
And some of the swarms are really easy. Some of them bush or low branch and just, but some of them are up on the side of a building. So, but in the spring, we go over again, the techniques, some of the things, the tools that you need to catch a swarm. And any beekeeper, it's real easy. Swarms are the easiest, form of bees to capture and collect.
Yeah. And, you know, another thing good, we do have several senior members that are willing to go help them for a first time, so.
But if you get a call, you gotta go right away. So you gotta be willing to leave, because that swarm might be there 2 minutes, they might be there 2 days. Normally, they're there for an hour or less, and then they're gone. So we try to, you're on the list, and Doug does a great job of going down the list and calling you and getting you that, going that direction. That's why we call him the swarm commander.
And the faster I can get it to you and you can get on your road, the better. I mean, sometimes I get it, people are working, and sometimes I make phone call after phone call after phone call, trying to get to people, so. But I do the best we can. That's all I got for that, yeah.
Yes, I guess we should talk about if you want to meet next month or not. There in the past, we've done a potluck. And then we've also done nothing. So we've just kind of left it up to the club. What you want to do. If you want to meet on, and it would be if we met on December, like, what is it? Second Wednesday is.
Second Wednesday would be the 10th.
Okay, so we have a motion for potluck. And we probably need another location besides this, and I can pretty sure we could use our church, it's Clifton Assembly of God out in Clifton. Probably not on a Wednesday night though, because there's a lot of things going, so we'd have to move it to another evening. Would be the only thing at that location. If somebody else has another location, would be more conducive. We're gonna do a potluck, but let's first of all vote on that. So we have a motion for a potluck. Those of you that like to meet next month and do a potluck, in fact, what we could do, the club could provide the meat,
I'll second it.
like Snook's barbecue or something like that. Snook Bottom barbecue or something like this. Yoga or something like that. We have, because we have a little bit of funds, we'll just have to vote on that. And so that would be just making that discussion. So, and then all you have to do is bring something
Sides
Side
and
dish.
dessert.
Scissor side.
Yeah. Who would like, all in favor of that, raise your hand. All opposed? Who don't care? Who didn't raise your hand? Still didn't raise your hand, okay?
So we're gonna have.
We're gonna have a meeting, we're gonna put together a little hot lepo, so we'll get some more information to you on the location. And the date, so somebody has, again, if you want to, if it's Wednesday, this could work for you, we just need another location. Anything is. Anywhere, anytime. We can do it on that second week. I think that would be the best, because the further we go into December, it's busy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tracy didn't make it.
No, Tracy is not. He had, previous, engagement. So, get ready for winter. Dun, dun, dun.
Not very good.
Yeah. So, again, if you haven't, you need to think about doing your final inspection and wrapping them up, getting them ready for winter. There's a couple of things that you need. Again, here is, scientificbeekeeping.com. Your adult bee population is down here at the bottom. Issue is your varroa has increased. Bee population has decreased, varroa has increased. So if a month ago you had low varroa count, your varroa population has increased per bee. Okay, so because your bee population is going down, varroa is going up, where it was 3 or 4 mites per 300 bees. Now it's double, triple, quadrupled. Just if you have not done anything to keep your varroa in check. We're going to talk about what to do. So that's why I always ask, who has done a mite wash on your last? You're just curious what your mite levels were. Okay, a couple of you, where were you at? Okay, that's good, and same,
About a month.
one. So insulation, talk about insulation. If you're going to insulate, this is kind of what we recommend. It is and the reason why you don't want a dark color. If you wrap your hive in a tar paper or something dark, it's going to say, well, isn't the whole point of insulation increasing the temperature? You do not want to overheat your colony. Basically, they break cluster around 50 degrees. And when they break cluster, they're flying and they're using more stores. So what you're actually doing by overly increasing the temperature, that you are causing your bees to go through their stores, their honey reserves much quicker. So this is reflective. It adds about 3 BTU, about the same as three-quarters of an inch of plywood or wood. And so also you want to put something on the lid. If you're going to insulate, some people do not. I would encourage you to do your own research, see about what, if you're going to or not. The forecast calls for a colder winter. We haven't seen that yet. I mean, they totally missed that so far, but I guess you got some winter weather showing up this weekend, and then temperatures are going to drop. What that translates to is, if it is an extended cold winter, then you probably want to start looking more along the lines of 100 pounds we typically say 80 pounds will carry you through the winter, but if you're a little heavier than that, then you're fine. If you do not have 80 pounds, and when we say that means the total weight of the hive, not just the honey, but the total weight of the two boxes, the double deep boxes, and how you kind of tell is you lever them up. So you pick up the backside off of and even if the bottom board's connected, that's fine. And you just lift them up. And you can generally, after you've been doing this a while, generally tell how much weight I have. Okay. And kind of give you an idea. Orientation, you want to make sure you elevate your beehive. So if you have your door, the side where the door is, you want to lift up at least a half inch from the back. And so the hive is sloped towards the front opening, the door. The reason why is because of the condensation. The beehive is going to produce its own water, but we don't want excessive water dripping down on the cluster. So that's why a lid, of course, so that the outside temperature is dropping. Core temperature, the bees keep it at about 90 to 95 degrees, usually in there about 93. They try to keep it around 90 degrees all year long. And that causes condensation. It'll just sit there and rain on the bees on that cluster. And that cold water oftentimes is a really good cause of that colony collapse, of the death of your beehive. So if you have it tilted, then the water runs, not drips down, but runs down the side walls. And we tip it towards the door so it has a place to go. That makes sense? For the water. Now, if you are insulating the lid, that also will help keep the condensation down. And what I do is, instead of the reflex insulation, I'll use that inch and a quarter foam board that you can get at any of the home supplies. And Owens Corning makes a pink, that foam board. It's a high density foam, and you just cut it the size of your lid. Either screw it down or put a block or rock on top to keep it on top. And that'll give you, just like your attic, where you need insulation above the lid, above your ceiling, that helps the bees. So if you don't wrap the outside, if you're thinking about giving them a little bit of help, then that would go a long ways for the insulation there. And okay, any questions on insulation before we move in? How many of you are planning on insulating? Okay, so just for that, just a couple of really good insights. There's people that do not insulate and they overwinter successfully in the valley. This depends on where they are. A windbreak, if they are out there where they're exposed to wind, that will make a difference. I would suggest that you think about insulating or put up a windbreak. Because if they're exposed to a lot of wind, if they're out there in the middle of nowhere, then that also has a dramatic effect, especially during the cold, windy storms that come through. And so a windbreak can be just any kind of, like a couple bales of straw or fence or whatever you have out there. But if you don't, then quick insulation will help. Okay. Questions, comments on insulating? If you do insulate, make sure your door is open. Do not close your door. Do not. They need ability to regulate the temperature as well as air. They constantly are causing an airflow to take place. And so you make sure that your door is open. And inspect your woodenware. If you got bad cracks that they have not been able to fill with propolis, there you can see in, or the lid doesn't sit flat. It's open on one side. Then you need to do what you can to make sure that a lot of people take duct tape between the two deeps. If they got, they're starting to rot or they're not sitting well, and so they'll just duct tape that crack and go around. And we want to give them the best opportunity to make it through the winter. Oftentimes, they've got that properly together, but if they don't, and you can actually see a crack, or here's what a lot of people don't realize, they have bees that found another entrance besides the front. And they're going in through a crack or a bad lid or wherever, that will have a very difficult effect on them in the winter time. So, shut up the cracks as best you can.
And they're not happy when you take their middle entrance away. I found that out the hard way.
Bring me to this is that I am running a sale on woodenware. Normally, a box and 10 frames is $45, which is still cheaper than anyone else, but I have 80 that I'm gonna make available to the club, so for $35, that's 10 frames, double wax, pure coat frames, and assembled boxes, so that's for 35. Until they're gone. So if you would like some, just talk to me afterwards and get you on the list. Some of them are already gone. I think 17 are already gone, so I have 53 left. No, 63. Hive inspections, okay. Honeybee viruses, this is what you want to look for. You're looking at your bees. What are you looking for when you're to do it? Now, you don't necessarily need to find your queen, and you may not see any eggs. Our final inspections that we just did, we're wrapping them up, getting them ready to be shipped to California. I had, and this week already, I had some that had 3 frames of brood, still, cap brood. Some of them had eggs, some of them had nothing, but I seen the queen. All the brood had hatched, queen wasn't laying. She might have been laying, but the bees are consuming the eggs, and so they're not letting them hatch. So they're not covering them. So you don't necessarily in fact, you don't want a lot of time digging in, especially if you got cold weather. We got a day or two. I don't know. I didn't look at the long-term forecast, but I think it's coming in. So if you do it quickly. And what you want, here's a couple things you're looking for. You're not going to necessarily see the mites, but here's a couple of mites there on top of her back. If your bees have they have viruses. Here is deformed wing. Has anybody ever seen any of your hives with deformed wing virus? Okay. Well, I haven't seen mite. I looked and I don't see the mites. There is the adult, but here's juveniles, and you are not going to necessarily see the juveniles. This is encapsulated, of course. But here is some of the viruses that we're dealing with, that we have in the valley and throughout each apiary. You're going to be. This is the virus that are there. You got black queen cell, deformed wing, Lake Sinai, acute bee paralysis, Kashmir bee virus, Israeli acute paralysis, and chronic bee paralysis. Chronic bee is very prevalent here. Wing, we do have a little bit of black queen cell, not much, but we have acute bee, chronic bee, and deformed wing. And again, that's the deformed wing virus. That bee is not able to live very much longer. And we have K-wing virus. K-wing, see, there is actually 4 wings, but you don't see the 4th wing. You only see 2 wings because there is a hinge. These 2 wings are hinged together. And when that hinge is no longer able to stay connected, you'll see a K-wing. And that K-wing is indicative of paralysis, one of the paralysis viruses. So if you see K-wing, that bee is unable to fly as well. She usually flies out and she's walking back. So when you see walkers, you're in front. There's always 1 or 2, but if you see 5 or 6 bees that are walking in front of your apiary, that's because right there, K-wing. So that's one thing you want to look for is K-wing, and she looks pretty good. she's still got some of the fuzz on her, not too bad. This is a younger bee though, so the fuzz face. But she was born with that virus, and so she's not gonna live very long. Okay, Nosema ceranae, if you've seen any of this, has gut issues. This normally shows up in the spring, but there is in the fall. And it's this excessive defecation on the outside of your hive. Chronic bee paralysis is something that you also want to look for. Shiny bees. They're fuzzless. And this one here has a little bit, see, the bee is black. What gives them the yellow color is actually the paralysis causes the bee to lose their hair. And so if you're looking in your hive and you see a black shiny bee, that is a bee with chronic bee paralysis or just one of the paralysis viruses. Okay, so K-wing, and a lot of times you'll see the paralysis with the black shiny bee. Good. Dig out the bugle. Okay. Okay, controlling mites, you control the viruses. Here is why you don't see mites very often. If you see the mites, you probably you have a mite bomb. And if you're actually seeing the mites, usually it's too late. Here's why: is because the pterygites are the individual segments of the bee. Underneath the segments are called sternites. The varroa prefer sternite location than the pterygites. And in the sternites, they are under the flap, and usually half to 3/4 of the mite is hidden underneath the flap of the sternite. That's why you're not going to see them. And that's why we have to do mite wash, because in a mite wash, the alcohol or the soapy water causes the mite to die and release from their location. And so you're able to actually count them. So that's why. A lot of people, I haven't seen the mite. I looked really close and I did. You're not going to unless you turn that bee over and literally take some tweezers and open up the sternite.
And she ain't gonna like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, how many you're gonna do to find a mite? So does that make sense? Why you don't see mites? Because that's the location, that's the preferred feeding location of the varroa. That's underneath, and that's where there's a mite that's headed underneath that sternite. What's your mite load? There's a number of different products out there. A couple of different YouTube videos, how you can make your own mite wash equipment, but this is the one that is readily available on any of the websites. Yeah.
You had said a while ago about, powder.
Sugar shake?
Yeah.
There's been many scientific studies on that. It does work where there are mites will drop, but then you take that same amount of bees that you use for a sugar shake and do an alcohol wash, and then more mites show up. And so it is not as accurate. Do that 300 bees actually live? There is a lot of different conversations along those lines. If they do live, are they going to be viable? Are they going to be damaged? I mean, as hard as you have to shake on a sugar shake to actually get an accurate count, you're going to damage those bees. And 300 bees in a healthy hive, you have that many that are dying especially during the summer months. You have upwards to 600-700 bees that are dying a day. And so it's not like it is something that's going to be detrimental. Okay, so that's why we suggest doing the alcohol wash or the soapy water. Okay, so if your mite wash looks like this, so that is, I think there's 30 some mites per 300. So what's the threshold? 4. If it's 4, you better be, if it's 3, then that's on the threshold. If I don't, they're taking care of it. If it's 4, then you need to intervene. That's kind of where we're at right now. And so if you don't know what your mite load is, you don't know if you need some intervention, some serious intervention. So if this is going on, then your mite treatments are not being effective, or there's something else at play. We are also, so we got oxalic acid vaporizer, and oxalic acid vaporization is the best right now because they are near or completely broodless. There should be very little capped brood. And so all the mites are free. They're what we call pathretic mite, which the oxalic acid is able to reach them. And we have somebody, Gene is here, and he has offered, is that offer still good? He has offered to help anybody here to come to your apiary and to vaporize your hives with the club's vaporizer. Club has battery operated vaporizer. So if you're interested in that, get a hold of Gene and he will get you connected. If you just want to rent the vaporizer, then just come and talk to me and we'll get you on the schedule. But I appreciate Gene doing that, and you might maybe give him a couple dollars for his fuel as he runs all over town, or however he wants to do that, but he offered to do that. And again, oxalic acid vapor will knock down those mites instantly. Within the 3 days of hitting them, you'll have, usually the first mite drop takes place within a couple hours, and there'll be 80% of the mites that were hit with oxalic acid in the next couple of days, but it's usually gone out of the hive within 3 days, the residues of oxalic acid. And so some will do it twice, hit them twice, just to clean them up. If you have a bottom board, you can put a sticky board on there. You can count the mites if you're wondering how many mites did drop. If you want to know more about sticky boards, you can talk to one of us afterwards and give you an idea what to do and how to put a sticky board on the inside on the bottom board. And as the mites drop, you can get a pretty good idea of what's going on. Any questions? Oxalic acid vaporization.
Do you redo the white wash like 3 days later?
You can to see but normally I don't, because I know the intervention is going to work. You can do a follow-up to see, hey, did this work? But right now, if you have a high mite load, oxalic acid is going to take care of it in the vaporization. Because key to that is vaporizing when it's above 45 degrees, usually they broke cluster. If it's 40 degrees and colder, they're still in a tight cluster. And so that oxalic acid vapor won't penetrate inside that cluster. It just hits all the bees on the outside of the cluster. And so what you want to do is you want to wait for them to break cluster, hit them with oxalic acid vapor, and it will, every area in that hive will get coated with those oxalic acid vapor crystals. Okay. I tend, yeah, but if we got weather that it's not going to get to 50, usually 45 and on the inside, 45 outside, especially if the sun is shining. If there is sun that has been shining on your hive, then they broke cluster. And a good way to find out, crack the lid. Ooh, shit. This time of year, oh, they're happy to see you. Let me. Oh, yeah. Thanks for showing up. Okay, we have the welcoming committee. Okay, any other questions there? Good. Okay, so what to do if you have a mite load and the viruses you see in some of these K-wing or deform wing. Deform wing are some of the paralysis. So there's a number of things on, this is Man Lake's website. They throw a lot of stuff out there, and personally, I've used probably, I haven't used that one, but the rest of them, we've, over the years, thrown stuff at them. There's what we've kind of ended up settling on, because I know this works. This works. Mellofair Boost, we've used that for years. That definitely turns things around. The last 2 years, we've used Super DFM. Super DFM is designed for gut health, specifically amino acids and to build their immunity. So I alternate. We just, the last inspection, we hit everything with Super DFM, everything got it. So, there is also, the Super DFM has this company has Honeybee Biologics has a product that is made for pesticide to help your bees deal with if there's been any kind of pesticide issues. So if they've been hit with any kind of pesticides, then but it's more expensive. So it's give you an idea. Like a bag, this has got 10 applications. It's going to be a couple dollars more, maybe $3-4 for that to help with the pesticide exposure. So these two here, just like any virus, there's no magic bullet. There's nothing that you can do to remove the virus, but you can help the bees with their gut and their ability to deal with the viruses. Again, viruses are already there. The bees have been dealing with the viruses. The reason why the Varroa are so detrimental is because the Varroa, when they are attaching themselves, they inject those viruses right into the fat body of the, when we say fat body, it's not like you're thinking fat body, it is literally their internal organs. That's the term, their internal organs. And so they're injecting those viruses right into the bee. And so if you would lower your mite load, they're also lowering your virus load. Questions? Yeah.
So you would use it right now?
Right now, I would use, yeah, right now I'd use Super DFM. I mean, if you have both, that's what I go to this time of year. Because we're going into winter, my bees are gonna get moved here and they're gonna go through some stressors. And stress, whenever there's a stressor, then that magnifies any of the issues that are going on. This, we hit in the spring, and then once in the summer, this will hit right now, and then probably in a couple of weeks after they land. Second week, third week in December, when we're building them up, we'll hit them with that again, and then before they go in the orchards, we hit them with that.
So how do you use the Super DFM?
Super DFM is 1 tablespoon per colony. So you want to put it on the corner. So we just throw that 1 tablespoon up here in the corner of the deep on the top, right underneath the lid. And the reason why you don't want to put it in the middle is because if there is any open brood, it'll contaminate that open brood, and then it just destroys it. They'll pick it. So put it up here out of the way, and it'll be gone within a day. That day you come back, they've ingested it, it's fed throughout the colony. I put it on top box, underneath the lid. And it's not that invasive. So if you're gonna do this last inspection, you don't have to really dig in, like, especially if it's cold. I would suggest not. I mean, if you have a couple of days that's gonna be in the upper 50s, then yeah, that sunshine, that's okay. But don't spend a lot of time, because again, your do more damage. And the thing is, you're digging around looking for a queen. If you damage her or kill her this time of year, then that colony's done. So be careful in this last inspection. If you're thinking, well, I need to know kind of my mite load. A lot of times I won't do a mite wash until I see a problem. The bees are just lethargic. I see K-wing, I see some paralysis. Then I'll do a mite wash and see if I got a mite load. And I don't wash every colony. There's a couple of things that I look for, which one I gotta see if there's a problem in that one, because and that's why we always suggest having more than one beehive. And so you have a way to compare and to gauge, okay, this one's doing real good. Because those of you that have more than one colony, one's gonna be doing better than the other. That's the case. And so what you wanna do is, the one that's struggling, and you're thinking, well, it's struggling, I don't wanna take, more bees from it because it's struggling. What do I do there? Well, again, you go back and look, do you have any of those issues? Do you have any of those issues that we're talking about, like those shiny bees? If you have anything, and see how black that is? Their thorax, it's totally black, there's no hair on it. They might be totally black, there might be a little bit of yellow, but that's how they look. And K-wing, again, you see any of that? Form wing's a big one. And the K-wing. Okay. So if you see any of that, then I do mite wash immediately. So hey, what's causing that? Is it a mite load? And 90% of the time it is. But sometimes it's not. So I'm not going to throw more miticide at them if there's not a mite load. But if there's those things, then I'm gonna give them some super DFM, because they're battling viruses, and that's what I can do to help them out. The other thing I can do is I can look for frames. Do I have a couple of frames that are real ugly? Because they might be dealing with viruses because they're stressed. And one of the biggest stressors is residuals that have built up over time because of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. And it's in the comb. So that old dark black comb, that could be the stressor that is causing the virus load. So I need to make sure that I clean up my comb. I change out comb. In fact, this year, I didn't even wait. I didn't even said, okay, because we are dealing with neonicotinoid pesticide that has been devastating. So if there's any hint at all in that frame, I pulled it. And that turned it around for the most part, those. And then there's a couple other things that we did to help them out. But that's the main thing. I look through, is there bad comb? If I have some really dark, ugly comb, I'm gonna pull it. Shake the bees off. And what happens if there's a lot of cap brood in there? You don't want to remove that cap brood. Well, I will put in an excluder. I'll make sure the queen's down here. They'll exclude that queen out, either put it up above. I don't run any mediums or shallows. My supers, none of supers are deep, so it's really easy for me to do that. For other people, it's a little bit more difficult. But if you can exclude that frame of brood, so they all hatch, and then get rid of it, then you save it that way. But if not, what you want to do is just pull it. It's better for them to not have to deal with that. Even though there is some encapsulated brood that you're gonna, there's upwards of 5,000 bees that, however, if it's causing more problems, some of you have talked to me already that you had a beehive, no matter what you did, it wouldn't recover. It just stayed static. There was always cap brood, and it seemed like they were hatching, but that beehive never grew. They had a few of those, and then this time of year, they finally tanked. They didn't make it. But no matter what I did, there's a few of them I could give them frames of brood, I requeen. I hit them with a number of different things that would, I clean up some of those issues. Nothing I did. And so it comes down to, there are some things we just don't know yet, but I suspect that I know that there's some farmers in this valley that are using neonicotinoids. And some of the areas, because of the people that the other commercial guys that are in that same area, as well as a couple of people in their V club, they had the same issue, same difficulties. And once we removed them out of the area, they recovered. So it was an area problem, not a bee problem. Questions? Either I'm that good or I'm that bad, were you? Yes, thank you.
Real quick.
Yes, if your sponges are more than a month old, put new sponges on. That is going into the winter. That low mite count is gonna keep them down. So if you're using the extended Swedish sponges, then that is a great time to put them on. Last one, and that way that carries them through the winter. You got December, January, February, very first inspection, and then February, March, somewhat depending on weather. Okay. You don't have those extended oxalic acid sponges, come talk to me. Okay, right after I can help you out. Shut that for Gene. Thanks. Okay. Big one. Who's heard of this? This is a brand new Neurora mRNA technology. I'm gonna give you some very specifics here. This is an RNA technology. It's the same science behind these last rounds of COVID-19 shots, using the same thing as gene manipulation. So this is the way, the science behind it is, the active ingredient is, that is used is Bottiscana, and it's a double-stranded RNA. So what happens is the bees consume the syrup. Here's how it works. The bees can put this bag of syrup, which has the Bottiscana in it. The bees consume it, they feed it to the larva. The mites go in, that's encapsulated, then the mite consumes Bottiscana, and it manipulates the gene function of the mite itself, and so it sterilizes the mite. The gene is the calmodulin gene of the mite. Now, all insects have a calmodulin gene, okay? Honeybees have a calmodulin gene as well. And here's where the disconnect. It is close, but it's just enough different. So they say that it does not affect dramatically. It does affect the honeybee. And I'll tell you about, because I've done some deep dives recently, because there's a lot of people talking about this. So I wanted to know, and I went to and I read the study as it's been published, the actual published studies that the the university's done, there's one university, and where it started was over in New Zealand. So, and New Zealand's lab that basically come up with this and did the first studies, how it affects the mites and not the honeybee. It was only in a laboratory setting with mini nooks. So not full-size beehives, not outdoors. It's in a controlled setting with no control. Control is, hey, we're gonna do out of this study, we're gonna separate a number of hives. We're not gonna do anything with them, but we're still gonna enter them into the study. So we make sure that we are not missing something. How do they respond to nothing? And how do these respond to the control of the gene manipulation? So here's the calmodulin gene in a bee is its brain function, okay? And so what it does is the olfactory system. How do bees communicate? Pheromones in their olfactory system. Well, it doesn't affect them that much. Okay. And then also, and here's where the study goes off the rails for me, is that it also affects the difference, how the bees differentiate between the queen and the worker. So they said, well, we've seen the differences is that it shortens the life of all the workers by about a week. They admit that in the New Zealand study. It also manipulates some of the brain function, they say. So when they say it doesn't affect the honeybee, it'll affect the mite, but it does not affect the honeybee. That's a manipulation of the terminology. So the study that came out from the people that produced this, and incidentally, the people that put the study together in the United States were part of the laboratory that produced the gene manipulation. So it's like, no, they're linked to it, and you can, if you go online, you can read all of the published papers, including the FDA when they approved it. They list those things. They're up, they have to, by law, they have to, but you have to do a lot of reading, and you have to move through a lot of psychobabble. There's a lot of interesting information about this. Bottom line is, I'm on a wait and see. My bees are already having a hard enough time. One dose of this is 4 months, last 4 months. So what I'm thinking is there's got to be some residuals. I'm already dealing with residual issues. So if this continues to, how long does it last? How long? And you can't have it with honey supers. You can't put this on. And so you have to put this on and then time it. You can't have to put those honey supers on for 4 months.
Watching their little promo videos, they basically said it didn't say you couldn't put them on for 4 months. They said do it without, because they want the syrup to get out of the package and be stored in the brood comb. And then they'll supposedly take it from there and feed it to the larva. If you have honey supers on, there's potential that they could put it on the honey supers. And then to top that all off, I don't know if anybody's looked, but they're recommending 2 pouches per brood box. So 4 total. Each pouch is $11. So it's $44 to do a double bee times however many hives you have. They're proud of their stuff.
No, they're trying to recoup their investment, the RNA technology.
What does RNA stand for?
Messenger RNA to ribonucleic acid, which is what forms your DNA.
So it's manipulation of DNA. sends different signals to your DNA, is what it's doing. It doesn't necessarily, some people say it changes DNA, I don't know if it actually changes DNA, but it definitely manipulates your DNA, so.
The way I understood from when they were doing the COVID and the messenger RNA, that's like the blueprint that it sends to your cell, like, hey, here's the blueprint, make this. And then that making is supposedly the antibody for COVID, or the reduction of their ability to reproduce.
But the calmodulin gene is very similar from a honeybee to a varroa mite. But they say it's enough difference that it's not gonna manipulate the one where it's the other. But I don't know. I'm finding myself being a little bit skeptical.
Yes. Yeah, that, I don't know if you guys are subscribed to Man Lake, the end of last week, it blew up. This has now been approved in these states, and they say there was a very minor press release about 3 months ago, says FDA has approved this, but it's up to the states. And then last week, between the club email, my personal email, I got probably 35 different messages, because it's exclusively outsourced from Man Lake right now. This is now approved in Colorado. Buy it now, buy it now, buy it now. So. It's for sale at Man Lake, yeah. It's for, yeah, I looked it up, and that's when I watched their videos. Like I said, that's how I found out. $11 per pouch, 2 pouches per brood box.
So
Yeah.
it wouldn't work right now anyway.
Yeah, this would be a spring thing, so.
So right now, it's not gonna manipulate, because where they receive that is when they're encapsulated. So
How long was the study of the duration?
they got approved, and I'm just reading, they just recently got approved, but the studies were published in March. So the study was published, and then they had to go through the trials. So it's less than a year and a half. That was New Zealand though, and so the United States study, I think, was finished up in the summertime. So that was fast track. They fast tracked. How long it took for Amitraz to be introduced with Apovar? 5 years. And that's usually the standard when it comes to all kinds of pesticide applications and new. So this one got fast tracked for something. I don't say some reason, it's probably money. Deep pockets, and I don't know who, because you can't find out who is the ones behind these. The company's called Greenlight. The actual laboratory that's producing is called Greenlight. So they basically have washed the internet of anything remotely connected to Greenlight. You can't find it. So that's besides their own website. So there's no negative. And that takes a lot of money to do that. It takes a lot of money to watch the internet totally of any kind of negative press, or who are the players that are financing. So the money's behind it. So I'm just giving you what I know. It could be the magic bullet. It could be because if Tropholalaps ever gets here, that is supposed to do the same thing the trophy might. Tropholalaps right now, the only thing that's effective is formic acid. And it's like 50% type of thing. So if we have to deal with that, then but if y'all want to do that, please let me know, and I will be talking to you, see how your bees did.
If they're alive. How bees did.
You want to be the guinea pig? Okay, that's all right. The people that I'm associated with, we represent about 30,000 colonies, and a couple of guys are the big boys. It's across the board, said no way. We put a couple of adjectives in there, but it's no way. Not gonna do that, because they have better insight than I do of who's behind it, so. anyway, I said I'd bring that up. That's what I know. I give you what I know. Do your own research. It's easy. Today, you know, with AI, it's easy to pull up all kinds of different information. Not all of it's gonna be straightforward, but if you go back to the actual research papers and the studies that were published, they have to, when they do these studies, scientific studies, they have to publish their findings. And so you have to do a little bit of digging, but you can actually find the published work and then read it. And there's a lot of scientific wording that you have to wade through, but you can get down to their results, especially when it comes to how it affects the honeybee. That's the key, how it affects, they all say it does affect them and their own emission, it does affect them. And how it affects them, there depends on the study, what you're gonna find. So for them to say it does not affect the honeybee, well, it does not affect them in some of, they say in non-adverse fashion. Well, shortening their life a whole week is kind of adverse to me. Okay, that and some of the disorientation issues, that is definitely adverse in my opinion. But that's what they have admitted in these studies. Don't read what the manufacturer is telling you. Go back and read the study that actual laboratories and universities have published about. And I'm sure there's a whole lot more coming quick as independent researchers are going to get a hold of this. Because if it does what they say it does, then it's going to be pretty phenomenal. But how many times have fluvoronate was one of them. That was the magic bullet. And then the mites become immune to it. And Amitraz is the same thing now. So there's a lot of different ways that we've come at this, and it seems like it's unraveled over time. You give you that, just a little bit of information. Any questions on that? Any answers on that? Okay, thanks. That's what we got. So if you're going to do a final inspection, try to do it quick. Get an idea, renew the oxalic acid pad if that's what you're using. If you want to take advantage of Gene's offer, talk to Gene, wave at everybody, Gene, this is Gene back there in the fedora. I don't know, is that a fedora? Is that that looks like an Aussie hat. And we will get you scheduled to hit your beehives with oxalic acid. The club does have a vaporizer, and we will help you out with that. You want to go that direction anyway. Plan on next month. We'll get some information to you, the what, where, and how. If you want to order some woodenware, like I have a little bit left, so let me know. We'll also be January, we'll be start taking orders for those. And we always get a few then, but where we really start getting orders is when you finally find out that your bees are dead. Anyway, hopefully we don't have a lot of orders from the club. Okay, that's what I'm hoping this year, that none of you have any orders unless you're just wanting to increase your apiary. You want to order a couple of weeks. Okay. Yep.
We get the golden ones.
Yep, this Golden West, Randy Oliver's. So that's where we're kind of leaning on that. I still have some Saskies. Because I diversify, I still have some Saskatraz, but I don't know if you've noticed this last round, they got ornery.
Absolutely.
Everybody see it? This year overall, bees were just notch more aggressive than they have been. Have anybody else noticed that? I did. Across the board. And
Because you're new.
yeah,
If we're not quite at 80 to 100 pounds, is it a good idea to feed them?
yes. Open feeding is okay. But know this, you're gonna be feeding yellow jackets and everybody else's bees. Frame feeder, inside frame feeder is good. Top feeders like bucket feeder or something like that is okay as well. Just make sure you take them off at night. Okay, don't leave feeders on overnight, okay? Especially when it's getting cold. And unless a doorway feeder is okay to leave, but here's the thing, cold syrup is very difficult for them to process. The warmer the syrup, the better, okay? Don't do hot, because you can burn their little tongues, but because they'll take it, even though it's, it's still bubbling, okay? But warm syrup is always does so much better. And when you're making your syrup, make sure you do not boil it. Do not boil any kind of sugar, syrup, or if you're doing fondant, keep it under at 200 degrees. Anything over 200 degrees, you're going to produce what is called hydroxymethylfurfural, which is hydroxymethylfurfural is a toxic component that happens when sugar is overheated. Okay, and it is definitely toxic to bees. So you're trying to help them, you just tank them. So keep that in mind. So you heat it up, keep it warm, feed them warm syrup if you can this time of year. 2 to 1, 2 parts sugar, 1 part water, 2 to 1 this time of year. Do not do 1 to 1. They have to dehydrate all that. If you're going to do sugar boards, that's sugar board on top, or we talked about that. Also talked about quilt boards. If you're thinking about doing a quilt board, there's a lot of information on that. Tyler Tobias is our quilt board guru. He's not here. I'm gonna have him throw a little bit of information if you want to do a quilt board on top, but there's a lot of great information on that. All kinds of different ways to overwinter on that capacity, giving them some little bit of extra. If you have more than one hive and one hive is real heavy, heavier than the others, and you got a couple of them that are light, you can take frames of honey from the heavy one and distribute it to one that's light. Vice versa. Do not put blank frames this time of year in a hive. That blank frame does not carry heat if this gets cold too easy. So that extra space of a blank frame is really hard on. So if you can avoid that, avoid putting a blank frame. This is what I mean by blank frame. There's no drawn comb. And you don't have drawn comb, and that's all your hive has. Bunch of blanks, then I'm talking to you can help you out. Okay.
Talk about fondant. There was some fondant you said was okay, and then some that you don't want to use.
Don't use store-bought fondant. That definitely has hydroxymethylfurfural. Go to like, hey, we'll go get some cake fondant. That stuff is, in fact, hydroxymethylfurfural is a type of preservative, and so they're shooting for that. They want that in a fondant, and the store's got all kinds of preservatives and chemicals that you don't want. So there's homemade fondant recipes. Go online if you're wanting to go that route, but keep it under that 200 as much as you can. And it's hard to do fondant at a lower temperature like that. Usually they want it, yeah. And it's very, burn the snot out of you too.
Oh, it will, it could, or it does,
Okay,
all the above.
good.
2 to 1 sugar, but frame feeder.
2 parts sugar, 1 part water in any feeder right now.
Right.
Any feeder that you're gonna do. 2 parts sugar, 1 part water. If you're gonna do just, some people will take off the outer cover and then you have your inner cover. You'll sprinkle sugar around on top, just don't go down in the hole of the inner cover, and just, you can go some sugar around the top. And that also acts as that's probably the easiest method right there. It's very hard for them to process raw sugar like that, but they will do it. They need it. Okay. So you can do that. Just make sure that you don't have sugar dumping in to the colony from the center hole. Right? There's sugar boards. You make a sugar board, you make a sugar cake. You mix water, vinegar, and even some Honey Bee Healthy type of thing that you can get from, there's Hive Alive right there, Honey Bee Healthy. There's some things that you can get to mix with that. I use Complete when I did my sugar boards. But I overwintered up in Glade Park before we started going to California. And it's hard. It's hard to overwinter at 7,000 feet with 2 feet of snow. But it did. They had to supplement. Then it was like Nosema City in the spring. So you're gonna see some bees flying throughout the winter. You're gonna see a few bees flying when the warm days are just still. I mean, I had pollen coming in. I had pollen coming in still, and nectar. There's some stuff blooming. I had nectar and pollen coming in this week. That's all gonna change. All that's gonna shut off like a light switch, and you're gonna move into the winter. Winter nest is really intact. So how many have a beehive you think is gonna make it this year? Wait, I got a beehive that's gonna, I know.
And if it's not, if mine don't make it, it ain't my fault.
Mine didn't either. We're all in trouble. Any other questions? Give that opportunity, but make sure, because you're lucky, you wanna make sure you have your questions answered. All good?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Again, talk to Gene if you want vaporization, or me if you just wanna rinse a